Welcome to Life Bursts. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sarah. And on today's show, we have the one and only Neil joining us on the line all the way from Victoria. Thank you, Neil, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Well, let's start at the beginning, Neil. Where did life start out for you?
I was born in Darwin and came to Adelaide when I was about 2 years old, and then grew up in Adelaide and then moved to Melbourne when I was 35 years old.
Wow. So you've moved around a fair bit over the years. What was life like growing up in Darwin?
I actually don't remember it because I came back when I was 2. So
right.
I don't really remember. I actually haven't even been there since. So I would really like to go back there and see that. But I think that's probably why I can take hot weather. You know, like that whole thing. You're born in a territory that is quite hot, and so therefore you are okay with humidity and okay with heat.
So moving on from Adelaide, at the age of 2, you moved to where? Tell us the next stage of your life growing up.
Yeah, so I moved to Adelaide and spent time there. We lived in only one house, so I only lived in one house there, as in with my parents. And then when we got married, when Kate and I got married, we have moved 9 times, including to Victoria about 7 years ago. So, yes, we have moved around a bit, seen a lot of Australia and South Australia, Victoria and all different places. But that's okay. You've got to move where the rentals are, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
So, you know, when the landlord sells a property, you've got to go. And so that's been our circumstance many times. We've either grown out of a property or we've had to move, or we felt led or called to another area. So we've acted upon that.
Okay. What do you mean by called or led? Yeah,
I mean, I'm a Christian, have a relationship with Jesus, love him to bits, and I believe that his spirit, when you become a Christian, his spirit lives in you, and therefore you are guided at times by his spirit to where we feel like we're meant to be led and guided. And for me, what that looks like is sometimes it's a nudge, a sense. Someone speaks about it. There's a confirmation that feels right in me. Kind of the way I look at it is that, you know how when, someone's either speaking to you and they're talking about a particular topic and you're going through that topic and you haven't told anyone and you're like, far out, that person's really speaking to me. That's the type of feeling that I get, that sense of this is the right decision. And also for me, moving to Victoria was, at the time I was pastoring churches, and I felt like that was the next place that we needed to go. And so we did, and we went to a church and did that over there. So I think, God leading us, calling us, whatever you want to call it if you like, but it's just that sense of this is a direction that I might need to go and at least test it out.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a pretty unique sense of feeling that you've had, but you didn't always understand life like that. Tell us about your childhood years, particularly as a teenager. How would have you seen things then? How was your perspective different?
Yeah, I've lived my life looking for a place to have a voice, and I never really had a voice in my home, and so we never talked about deep stuff. We never talked about anything really. And a particular incident happened to me when I was really, really young, and I came to a trusted adult, and they kind of really fobbed me off. And I wasn't realising this until later, but throughout my life, I've always looked for a voice. I've always looked for my voice to be heard, that I matter, that I'm loved, that I'm cared for. And so those decisions led me to make some probably unhelpful decisions, some friendships that I had, that these people, said that they cared about me, loved me, and showed it towards me. And through that, they were doing some things like drugs and alcohol and all those sorts of things, a crime and a bunch of different things. And in order to fit in, to feel loved, to have a voice, to feel like I matter, I made some decisions to do that as well. And so I made decisions, intentional decisions, to be with them and to do drugs and to drink and to make those unhelpful relationship decisions, because I was looking for the voice, because I wanted to fit in and feel loved.
How did you get out of that situation, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, there were many times I could have got out. I chose not to. But probably the most particular or the most profound moment of my life was that I was working for a company that sold hoodies, would you believe? And it was at a Christian church service, youth rally type thing. And where young people gather to worship God. And I was setting up the gear, and they were rehearsing, and the worship music had started. And then I sort of said to the guy that I was setting up with, I said, look, I need to listen to this. And I came in there, and that still small voice, if you like, that pull on my heart was like, you know what? No one was even talking. Like, that's the thing. Like, no one was like preaching, no one was talking or anything like that. It was literally just this music, and it was just this confirmation in my heart to say, he said, Neil, you're not doing something. You're not going to be living a life very long if you keep up this behaviour. And so I just really felt like, and I now know it was God, kind of this nudge in my heart that said, you can keep on doing drugs and keep on drinking and keep on sleeping around and keep on making these decisions that are unhelpful, but you won't spend eternity with me, and you're not going to live very long. And so he said, I felt like he said, but if you choose me, it's not going to be the most easiest life. There's going to be good times and hard times, but I promise you I'll be with you and you'll spend eternity with me. And so right then I made a decision to stop drugs, stop drinking, stop sleeping around and unhelpful relationships and hurting so many other people. And then I started the journey to getting my life right, which took about 6 to 12 months. And I wouldn't say my life's really right yet, but I don't think anyone's is really, but definitely my behaviour's changed. And I made that decision to focus on God and change my direction. Probably one of the hardest things was giving up my friendships that I had, and I knew that I had to do it in order to pursue this new life I had.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you share this with your friends?
I said to them, hey guys, I've become a Christian. I'm not doing drugs anymore. And they laughed at me. And I think they got stoned in front of me or something like that. And it took me a long time to stop getting drunk every weekend though. Like that voice in my head just said, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And you need to be the life of the party, you need to do this. And so it took a while, but after they saw that I was consistent, I think they just kind of went, oh, well, this guy's, not going to hang out with us in that space. And I was prepared to hang out with them, but on my terms rather than their terms this time.
So a pretty dramatic change for you, and one that changed the trajectory of your life. And we're going to continue to hear more of your story. So we are Life Bursts. You're listening to Matt and Sarah.
So Neil, how did you tell your family?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a home where they would say that they are Christian, or they went to church and they did things in the church and things like that. And, they made decisions to do that. I think we said grace. I'm pretty sure we said grace. when we were young, and but I kind of, when I was 13 years old, I came to them and said, "Oh, you know, this group at school, you know, I became Christian, stuff like that." But they saw that it was not a heart change, like it was more just behavioural changes and things. And then it wasn't long until I started, you know, doing the other things. And so I think they originally thought, like, who is this guy? Why is he saying this again? Like, it's not going to stick and all that sort of stuff. I honestly believe that. But after seeing what was actually occurring and how my life had changed, to be honest with you, I had to tell my parents that I was doing drugs and getting drunk every weekend and all this sort of stuff, because they didn't know. They didn't know really much about, you know, they didn't really get to know me as a person, and they wouldn't have even known if I was struggling or anything like that. And you know, that's just the life they lived. They were just caught up in who they were, and so telling them wasn't that hard. I didn't really sit down and have a conversation. I just kind of changed.
And then they just saw that as a witness anyway.
I'm not sure they saw it as a witness. I mean, I definitely couldn't shut up about Jesus. So, you know, I remember driving to my dad's was it uncle's funeral or something like that, and he you know, he asked me if he was going to hell, and I was able to talk to him about the relationship with Jesus and what he says in the Bible and things like that. And, you know, he just kind of said to me, "Oh, well, you know, I'm a good person, I'm a great person, so, you know, therefore that's where I'm going," kind of thing. And I didn't really fight it. I just left it there and just prayed for him. And, you know, when he went through his cancer and things like that, I'd constantly say, you know, "I'm praying for you," and things like that. And I think probably one of the biggest witnesses was when my cousin suicided a couple of years ago, or just over a year ago, and I did the funeral. And you know, I remember them saying to me, you know, "I don't know how you had the strength to do that," and I know how I had the strength to do it, because it was God giving me that strength, and it was a gift to them, the parents and things like that. So so I felt like, you know, I've been loud about my faith, but the thing is that you know, they're not at that place right now, so we just keep loving them.
Mm. So you earlier in the story were selling hoodies. You were involved in clothing. How did life, as you grew, as things changed, where did you find work and ways to spend your days?
I remember being a teenager sitting on the couch doing nothing, and my mum actually enrolled me in this retail sales course, and because I was just bumming around home after year 12, and she's like, "You're not bumming around home anymore. I'm going to enroll you in this course." And she enrolled me in this course, and I kind of loved it, thrived at it, and just started a retail journey. I think I worked in like 7 different stores in my retail journey, and part of that was right in the middle of that is when I became a Christian at 21, and met with some different people, and they got me working for SMG, and it was a really it was great. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't get paid for it and like that. It was kind of a consignment commissions thing that was, you know, I'd never do it that way again, but yeah, started that journey. So it's kind of interesting how I got into that.
Okay, so the SMG, not everyone will be familiar with that. What did that role look like?
So Schools Ministry Group had like a social enterprise arm, if you like, and they basically sold hoodies, basically, right, that had the symbol SMG on it, and yeah, we just sold them at youth rallies and different places like that. Yeah,
nice. So from there, as you finished school, you're working in retail. You had another opportunity to find some work that matched up with this newfound passion.
I was going to a church, and their youth leader was finishing up, and I think it was just I was the loudest there. that kind of, they went, oh, maybe you should think about leading this youth group and stuff. And so I did, and then apparently I was employed. I didn't have any interview in there, but apparently I was employed, and I was doing about a day a week or something like that. And then basically the church kind of amalgamated with 4 different churches, and it wasn't long until my heart had grown, and I was studying and doing a diploma in ministry at Tabor, and then I ended up going to into schools and just loving on those young people, and effectively partnering with the chaplain and running schools outreach stuff, and running soccer programs and mentoring and leadership talks and a whole bunch of different things, and then inviting kids back into our youth ministry, and that was great. We did some crazy stuff, and then, like, I think probably a couple of years down the track, my minister at the time just said, I reckon you should think about becoming a pastor or whatever it was, and so I kind of did. That was pretty much it, and ended up pastoring church 15 years, a lot of youth groups and churches, and had some really great times there.
So along the way, you've you mentioned suicide, but you've also been touched by others who've experienced pain and loss, and that's been it's resonated with you to the point that you've wanted to make a difference to that. So take us through what stirred for you there and what's come out of that.
Yeah. So I've had 6 people in my life suicide. My first experience was when I was about 16, a 13-year-old girl. Just was really struggling, was sexually abused, ended up making a decision to not go to school one day and ended her life alone. And she had come to Adelaide and spent time with us, and then gone back to New Zealand, and I hadn't heard from her. And then we were walking back from a party, and someone said, "Oh, do you know that girl? She's no longer with us, and she suicided." And it just really broke my heart. Then when I was in retail, I was working for a shoe company, and I heard this really big thud when I was serving kids at the time, and I turned around and someone had suicided right in front of me, just outside of our shop, and that was really incredibly tough. And just working in youth ministry, had a lot of young people self-harming, a lot of attempted suicide, a number of different things. And so when I was in between jobs, when I finished up with the church, pastoring churches, I was in between jobs, and my desire is always to hopefully just try to make the world a better place and be an example in doing it. And so I have always wanted to start a clothing brand, and so I decided, what the heck, why not? And so I designed a few things and got a few people to design stuff and put it out there, and started a brand called Positive Tshirts. And Positive Tshirts is a brand that is about starting a conversation that could save a life. So every image on the T-shirt is all about focused around starting that conversation, and they have images like talk out loud or positive or don't lose hope or whatever it is to try and start that conversation.
Cue the headshot on Sarah. I'm wearing
right.
I'm wearing
That's
my
right.
positive hoodie. I'll just take my
Positive
earpiece out. Here we go.
It's the long sleeve
Nice.
T-shirt.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's great. I love it. It's super comfy.
Well, we'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll come back in just a moment and hear more of that story. It's a great story. I've got some of the products too, and as you say, it does start a conversation. You are listening to Life Bursts with Matt and Sarah.
13 11 14 is the number to call for anybody who might be, maybe experiencing some of the things that Neil's talking about, or somebody who might be going through some of these things, or if you just need to have a chat with someone. 13 11 14 is the number to call to chat with someone from LifeLine, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We are chatting with Neil, and he's up to the point of his life when he started Positive T-shirts. So take us from there, Neil.
So so I didn't want to be focused on making money out of it for myself. I wanted to make sure that this brand was focused around making a difference in people's lives. And so I looked at partnering with organisations around preventing youth suicide. And so I ended up settling with a couple of organisations that I give finance to, and all profits go to these organisations because they focus on mental health and prevention of suicide. And so every sale, every profit goes to them, which is, really exciting.
Yeah. And your motivation behind this is to start a conversation. That's always been your motivation. And having walked around wearing the T-shirts and the hoodies myself, I know that that's the impact that they have. I've got one that's got "Don't lose hope." It's all it says. It looks good, but it does start a conversation. People say that's great words, and I'm able to say, yeah, this is what these T-shirts are about. And so, credit to you for creating something so small that does start a conversation. And I think that's your motivation behind it, isn't it? To get people talking about things that, like for you never had a chance as a child to talk about.
Suicide is a taboo topic. Mental health is a taboo topic. Mental illness is a taboo topic. And we've created this stigma in society that people don't want to talk about it because it is really, really prickly and really hard and incredibly difficult to talk about. The problem is, without talking about it, you inadvertently suffocate the opportunity to really see how people are doing. The thing is that there's so much talk around, we've got to be focused around good mental health. You hear it in sport, you hear it in a whole bunch of different worlds. And the thing is, in society, there's still a stigma around mental health, mental illness, in that, there's still, you don't have to speak about, if you have a mental illness, you don't have to talk about it in your workplace or anything like that. And you don't have to even say that you've got anything like that. And because people feel like they can't talk about it, or they feel like the boss is going to, discredit their ability to be able to work or whatever it is. And I think the thing is, that's really sad that we have this society where it's like, shut up and just deal with what you're going through and don't tell anyone, because then that presents as a weak force. And I know I'm not allowed to swear, so I'm not going to, but that's just bullcrap, And I think the thing is that my heart breaks for the many, many people that are going through this, and I just wanted to start a conversation, and I think it starts at the dinner table, conversations around the dinner table. I don't remember a conversation with my parents about these topics at all. I don't remember having a conversation about the birds and the bees kind of thing, about sex or anything. I don't remember a conversation about anything like that. And so if that's my home, I don't know, that's in the 80s or whatever it is, 70s, but the thing is that I don't think much has changed in society. And if we want to see statistics of 8 a day, suicides a day change, we have to get a conversation that's real and honest.
What would you say to parents or carers or family members of a young person who might have shared with them that they're going through something like this? What would you say to them?
Just say to them, what's the most important thing for you is to make sure that they feel loved. That child feels loved, that child feels special, that child feels heard and listened to, and that you actually let them know it's going to be okay and we're going to work through this together. I'm going to be on this journey with you. If they feel alone, then they won't ever talk to you again. If they feel like that you don't listen to them, they're just going to shut down. And that's what young people, statistics actually show that young people tell their friends before they tell an adult. And I think that needs to change. It needs to be their mum and dad or whoever, a trusted adult that's going to listen and act and respond, because a lot of young people don't know how to handle the emotion of a topic like this. Unfortunately, it's very close to my heart, this is, Sarah, because my son has been suicidal since he was 10 years old. And some of the toughest conversations we've ever had at home is around this topic. We have a policy in our home that basically states that no matter what you're going through, nothing's off the table to talk about. And I reckon at times that's really saved him. I think that's really helped him and supported him, and he's told us as such. And so I think the thing that I would say is to really make sure that you listen to your child and you respond, and you can get them to a GP as quickly as you can. Don't panic, but it's really important to get them to a GP and get them assessed if that's what you feel like you should do.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you sort of link any of our listeners into some type of resources that might be helpful for them?
On our website, positivetshirts.com.au, there are some helpful resources there that you can go to around statistics, but also around, what help you can get. There's, if a young person is struggling, they can go to Coming Together to Prevent Youth Suicide, which is a Facebook group that allows young people to share what they're going through, and if they are at risk, they get police involved, etc., etc. So that's an opportunity. And honestly, I think LifeLine is probably the best. They actually just, through the snap lockdown in Victoria, they actually just nearly broke the 60-year record. They had something like 30. They had over 3,000 phone calls in one day from 3,600 or whatever it was calls in one day, and that's nearly broken the 60-year record.
Wow. So
people are hurting right now, these lockdowns and things like that. So, and I think the thing is, what I'd say to a parent whose young person is going through that as well, I would say that, just think about what that child has just been through this whole year. Lockdown has really presented some serious impacts for young people, and they're still trying to understand and navigate this, and thinking that it's not going to happen again or is going to happen again, etc.
That's pretty critical stuff. And to go back to what you kind of alluded to before, it may not be that the young person gets to the point of wanting to share with you, but for a family to create space where it's safe and loved, and where, like you said, nothing's off the table, to create and encourage that conversation, so that when and if things do come up, then they're able to have that conversation. Just picking up on what you've added there before.
Yeah, it's
totally.
such a big and broad thing that you could make, because it's so many generations and the stigma that comes along with those generations and those statistics and all of those types of things. You can educate every single person in the family in different ways to do it. Like the adults in the house, I suppose you could educate them on how to create a safe place and how to start those conversations in the beginning, and for them, like what you have done, Neil, just to make it normal and that nothing is off the table, so that the children or anybody who comes into the house knows that it's a safe place to talk about those things. So and then you can educate the young person on how to possibly talk about this stuff, how to express their feelings to other adults in their life, and to find those people that care about them and that can support them through whatever they're going through. We're chatting with Neil, and I just asked him a question about when he was coming out of his life with drugs and alcohol all the time, and moving into this new life. Who were the people that were around him, or you, Neil, now I can talk to you, that supported you through this time?
Yeah, look, I would say that there was one person. There was a trusted adult who was a chaplain in my school, who went to our church, who cared about me in my adult years, a number of different things. And he used to pick me up every single Wednesday and take me to basketball, and I'd play basketball in his team and things like that. We'd have deep conversations on the way home. And there were so many times where we'd be like, you don't have to do this, like you don't need to do it. There's another way and all this sort of stuff. And I think, still to this day, he's a really good friend of mine, a really good friend. And he, we've got a special bond. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know where I would be, to be honest with you. I think him and Jesus kind of helped me out a lot.
That's special, yeah. Well, Neil, thanks you've been really honest in what you've shared with us today. As you've moved, we should say that you're in Victoria at the moment, and so the lockdowns and being aware of mental health, particularly in the situation there, are quite different to some of the other states and even here in South Australia, but the issues are still real. What have you found yourself doing now, and what's ahead for you?
Yeah, so I'm the General Manager of Child Safe, so I lead this organisation here. We work with organisations to prevent harm and abuse of children. And as a survivor of child sexual abuse, I'm pretty motivated to that. But we've created safe environments for over 320,000 children, and we're really stoked about that. And so we just support churches and sporting clubs and councils to help them to align with child safety standards, and also we've created tools and services to support them to create those safe places for children. So I lead that organisation and have been doing that for over 3.5, nearly 4 years. I've got a great small team, and we work nationally. We definitely punch higher above our belt than we should, but we want to make that difference. Just really paving the way for, I guess, our family and my wife and my children, and trying to help them with their opportunities. I've got a few things on the horizon that I'm working with just to expand this conversation around mental health, but more than that, just helping families to have conversations in general, just talk. Stay tuned for that. Continually keeping fit and healthy, and just continue to build good, healthy relationships that are authentic and real.
Now, I should ask you about your fitness, because you've got a pretty inspiring story, in my books at least. Over the last year or so, you've been pushing yourself and achieving some goals that people would have told you in the past that you would never reach. So, yeah, tell us where you were and what you've come to.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that now, but look, I was injured quite badly in my knees, and I've had surgery on my knees before, and one of the doctors actually said, you won't ever run again, and like running's been really good for mental health and things like that, and cut a long story short, I don't really like to listen to doctors every time, especially when they tell me what I can't do.
Yeah.
And so I changed my shoes. I got some mentorship around running and a whole bunch of different things. Ended up doing a half marathon last year, which was a pretty proud moment. I ran a few just before lockdown, obviously. Look, it was great. And unfortunately now, just before Christmas, I've injured myself again. So I'm now on rehabilitation again. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think it's really important to note that you should never put your eggs in only one basket, if you like, and there is opportunity to continue to grow. So since not running, I've started, really probably a more full-on routine, a lot of core work, a lot of toning and those sort of things, and I've probably, it's been really, really beneficial. And I haven't been able to run, which has been really unhelpful, and it's been very, very sore, but I've still been able to volunteer at Parkrun. I've been able to still connect with people, and it's just a different way. So I'm just going to get an exercise bike and things like that, and just try to keep staying fit and try to change my neurons in my brain to make sure I'm thinking positively about this running thing, and hopefully I'll be able to get back on the track again.
Here's a little funny question, because you're like into fitness now and everything. Do you bench, Neil?
Do I bench? I actually do things differently. I use a fit ball, and I do something called kinetic link training, which is it's a new kind of, well, it's been around for a while, but it's not so much heavy weights or anything like that. It's more about stabilization and getting range of motion. And so doing that, and then obviously, I just do heaps of push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that. So, yeah. So I don't have a bench per se. I can bench, but I choose not to. I think there's a better way of doing it. It's actually really unhelpful for your body, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm on the same page as you with that.
That's why I don't bench. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about, Matt?
Unhealthy. Yep, sure.
I could probably bench Matt. That's pretty much it.
All right. We'll have to send. I love that you're not giving up, and positive. So it's the name of your brand, but it's how you live as well. And even in what you've just shared, your motivation is still to find new ways of being positive, mind over matter in lots of ways as well, and the huge difference that makes. So, yeah, credit to you for that, and that's great encouragement to all who see you and continue to know you.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, we just totally skimmed over like your wife and everything like that. Yeah, I know, I missed that question because this went under such a good story afterwards. So we'll ask you that when we come back. This is Life Bursts with Sarah and Matt. So Neil, how did you meet your wife?
Well, that is an interesting story. So I was too cool for school when I was younger, but I did get invited to a youth group. And I remember being dressed in all black Adidas, cross colours, big jeans, like so big that when you walk, it looks like you're gliding across the floor kind of thing.
Is this 80s or 90s?
This is 90s.
Okay.
Actually, no, it would be an 80s. Oh, I can't remember now. Not that old now. Is it 90s? No, it'd been early 90s. Early 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
When Criss Cross had their hit jump. Anyway.
Yes, so, Matt, please tell us.
Yeah, so I was there and she invited me to play balloon volleyball, and I went, nah. And that was it. And then we didn't see each other for about 8 years. And I was working at a clothing shop, and a few days earlier, her mum had come in, and apparently she'd gone home and said to Kate, I met this guy at this retail shop, and he's really nice. Just come and meet him. Anyway, so that's apparently what happened. And so she came, and she was going to go to Sanity, if that's still around, and basically she ended up coming into the shop, and we knew each other. Like it was just this, we know each other. Anyway, and then I'd just become a Christian, and like literally, like I reckon a couple of months or something like that. And I was just like, you should come to our church and all this sort of stuff. And anyway, funnily enough, Kate's mum had actually been saying, you should go to Brooklyn Park. And anyway, and so I invited her, and I think she came about 3 months later, and she walked in, and I thought her name was Claire. So that didn't go down too well when we were trying to put her number in my phone. I was like, is it CL? And she's like, my name's Kate. Anyway, and so from there, just built the relationship, built the friendship, and it was pretty obvious that it was time to take it to that next level. And I invited her to be my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. So you're going to say get married, but okay. Eventually you ended up getting married. So how did you propose to her then?
Oh, that's an interesting story.
Okay.
I'm a very visual person, right? So I'm really visual, and so I often have visions and things like that. And so I remember, praying one time, or just sitting down, relaxing one time. And I remember having this picture of this sunset and island, and I'm like, okay, what's this all about anyway? And I just I felt like I knew I'd already bought the ring, so she was already ready to go. She already had her. I didn't propose to her, and she'd already bought her wedding dress. There you go. I just told her about a sale, and she went and bought one. Anyway,
I love this so much.
And she said to me, "You sure you want me to get this wedding dress?" I said, "Yeah, no, absolutely, definitely do it, absolutely." And she's thinking to herself, "You haven't even proposed to me, lad. What are you doing?" Anyway, I guess I could sell it on eBay. Anyway, no, eBay wasn't around back then. Anyway,
Trading posts.
but yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so anyway, I already bought the ring, and I focused on thinking about that dream and that vision, and so I realised it was on Granite Island in Victor Harbour, and so one day I invited her to come and have a meal with me, and then we went for a walk on Granite Island. I remember talking about a whole bunch of different things, and then we ended up praying, I think, together, for ages. And in the middle of praying, I pulled out the ring and told her, "Would you like to be my wife?"
Right.
And I think I think I asked her. Yeah,
right.
I don't even know.
You did say told her, didn't you?
You didn't ask Jesus or anything.
No, I don't think I told her. I think I just said, yeah, I don't even know what I said. You have to ask her. I did say Youre, so that was important. But there was no on the island. It was actually illegal to be there at that time because you're meant to be off the island at a certain time. We were in illegally, and we didn't know that.
Sure.
Sort of. And there were no one on the island, and so there were penguins in their holes because Granite Island there's penguins, and so Kate was like showing them.
Amazing.
That's so cute.
There you go. Well, there you go. Creative ideas for our listeners. Yep, you heard it here. So many options.
I could just hear Reese, the producer, just laughing in the other room right now.
Yeah, that's it.
Window.
So how long roughly you've been married now, Neil?
Yeah, I've been married 18 years.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
So, not roughly. I have been married.
Yeah, probably some rough patches, but we don't have to go there.
So how has your relationship with God and Jesus and stuff like that changed as you got married and then you grew as a couple?
I think it's safe to say that when I became a Christian, my head was so far in the clouds, I wouldn't even be able to see earth. I pretty much lived like that for, I reckon, 15 years nearly, always, even as a pastor and things like that, until I realised fully that I was that it wasn't actually about me, and it was actually about God. And I had some big hits, and some really big hits, from being bullied in the church to, and those two things shouldn't go together, but it did. Bullying in the church, to being fired from the church, to experiencing incredible pressure. It definitely challenged my faith, but for me personally, I'm so much better as a person, more authentic as a person, more real as a person outside of the church than I ever was in. And I know that's really difficult maybe for some listeners to understand. I'm not saying people should leave the church. I'm just saying that for me, my heart and my soul is about authentic relationships. And I would say that I'm still being undone and done up again by God, in that my faith is so much richer and real, and I'm not reading the Bible for a sermon prep, or I'm not, doing something to prepare for something. I'm just literally just, reading a verse a day or whatever it is, or praying when I feel like it, rather than having these regimented times. And for me and my family, we don't, go to a church or like that. We haven't got any desire to go to a church, but we have authentic relationships in our life that speak into our life, people who are Christian, and for us, that's really supported us, and that's our faith. And I think for me personally, I've come to realize more and more that you don't have to feel God to know that He's there. You rely on His promises and the past experiences to remind you of the fact that He's never left us. We had a conversation just recently with our staff, our small staff, around what is the darkest valley that you've ever been through. And I just shared with them about the fact that sometimes when you look back and you realize that God was there, it looked very different than you expected. And for me, when we were in Victoria and I got, fired from the church and we had to move out of home, like there's so many different things. We were 1 week away from being homeless, and, I had no job, no money, no nothing. And the thing is that, I know that I was still richer than so many people in the world, living in Australia. And so, you're going to land on your feet. But looking back, I know that, it wasn't that God provided when I wanted to. It was provided when I was ready to receive what I needed to have, rather than trying to will God into doing what I think He should do. And I've learned a lot about the fact that I don't need to have a voice to be listened to. I'm just loved anyway. And that's pretty precious. And I think, if I died tonight, I'd be pretty stoked that I've been able to receive that and understand that, that my voice is valid no matter what. Anyway, if anyone even doesn't even hear it, because God put it there. And I'm very privileged to know Jesus, and I'm very thankful that I've been on this journey with Him.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much, Neil, for sharing with us today, sharing just a burst of your life with us here on Life Burst. So thank you, Neil, for taking the time out today to share with us.
It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
So you can catch up on all things Life Burst through our podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from, or our video podcast on YouTube. This has been Life Burst. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Life Bursts is hosted by Matthew Karat and Sarah Freeman, with production by Reese Jarrett and Kay Hoshraw Ozadigan, with additional assistance by Brett Freeman. For more episodes of Life Bursts, go to rawcut.com.au. This is a RawCut production.